MT. One thing we know about Coach Insel and that staff is they're never going to be afraid to schedule an SEC opponent, even when it's early on in the season. In fact, it's usually especially when it's early on in the season. All the time that Coach Insel has been at the helm at MTSU, he's always made it a point, whenever you talk to him, whenever he speaks to the media, that he wants to get the best of the best teams to play MTSU, because those are the teams that are really going to test the Lady Raiders and push them into positions that they need to be in. And in order to do that, you got to schedule these tough teams. So that's why you see Coach Insel going out, scheduling SEC teams, Big Ten teams, whoever the case may be. He already had the Lady Vols marked down earlier this season. Of course, that game was in Murphy Center, and he's now has hosted yet another SEC team, the Auburn Tigers. And it's important to note that while Auburn may not be as well known in women's basketball circles, they're still a solid team this year. Off to a 9-3 start, pretty solid in most all of their games. They were always going to be a tough out for the MTSU Lady Raiders, and I think Coach Insel wouldn't have it any other way as far as challenging himself and this team to figure out what that rung is that they need to reach for and those things they need to work on, because you're going to learn more about what you need to do by learning from the best, by playing against the best. That's been Coach Insel's philosophy from the very beginning, and that was not questioned. That was not changed at all this season as MTSU took on Auburn last night. And looking at that game in particular and looking at the rest of their schedule, MTSU has already had some really tough opponents. We already mentioned the Lady Vols. They played Mississippi State earlier this season as well, so they've already played a couple of SEC teams, and this game was kind of similar to those in some respects, but it also had quite a few differences. The early part of this game was pretty low scoring. If you were listening or watching, you know what I'm talking about. Auburn was up 13-9 after the first quarter. Both defenses really showed out in the early going. I think when you look back at the previous games, especially against Tennessee, the Lady Vols got off to a really quick start early on in the Murphy Center, and I don't want to say that it stunned MTSU, but I think it did shell-shock them to some degree and kind of made them reflect and think about, okay, what do we have to do to make sure that that doesn't happen again, and what are we going to do to come back in this game? So it can be a bit of a mentality thing. I don't know if that's entirely what it was with the Lady Raiders in that contest, but that's a heck of an uppercut to take in the first quarter, and they didn't have to take it this time. Again, like I said, Auburn up 13-9 after the first quarter, and they avoided giving up the wicked fast start, did MTSU this time. So you got to credit the Lady Raiders defense for coming out, being ready to play, and understanding that they had to be very, very attention to detail as far as their play style in this moment, especially when you're playing a team that has the caliber of an SEC opponent like Auburn. You have to be ready to really combat anything they're going to throw at you. So that's what we saw from MTSU defensively in the first quarter, able to hold Auburn to a virtual stalemate as far as scoring goes. Now, the second quarter, in the words of 60s Philadelphia Eagles coach Joe Kaharick, was a horse from a different fire department. And it was all Auburn in the second quarter, to say the least. Going on to outscore the Lady Raiders 22-6 in that quarter, which just goes to show you how quickly they can turn on the Jets and get something going. Like I said, you got to credit MTSU for holding Auburn at bay in the early portion of the game, but as soon as the second quarter flipped over, Auburn found something. I don't know what exactly they found, but they found something or changed something up in between the first and second quarter during that little timeout, and after that, it was smooth sailing from the Tigers from then on out. And that was the sprint, really, that Tennessee got off to in November when the Lady Raiders played them, and from there on, the game was kind of at hand, and it didn't really matter throughout the rest of the game how well MTSU scored, what they did, what ended up happening, because at that point, the game was virtually over, which that's what you have to deal with when you're playing these SEC teams and these high-caliber opponents. You have to go into that game with the knowledge and understanding that this team has the potential to all of a sudden start dominating. And that's kind of what we saw in this game, is that Auburn in one quarter completely began to dominate MTSU and took their position at the front in this game. So Auburn ends up dominating MTSU down the stretch in the second quarter, but and I'm not trying to say this is a cop-out for the rest of the game or trying to undermine the win for Auburn. But if you take away that one quarter, it was pretty even the rest of the way through. Third quarter looked a lot better when it came to consistency. MTSU shot 46% from the field, and they got the three-point game going with Contreras and Monson. And that was big for MTSU to get the three-point game up and running to a big degree, because they've had times where they've struggled with that this season. They've had inconsistent stretches. In this game, they got it going a little bit more in the second half. And again, that's a sign of development. That's getting better plays in, getting a better play style going, becoming more comfortable with your style of game. That's what we saw in this game. And Carson Swaney deserves a lot of credit as well. A lot of applause after this game, if you ask me. And she's a name that I haven't mentioned, and I don't think as many folks have mentioned in, I guess, the mainstream MTSU women's basketball space. But she has been a really nice piece for MTSU this year. Career high 11 points in this game, along with three rebounds. She was one of the few players, who did a really good job of imposing their will on that Auburn defense. And I was really impressed with her composure in that moment. And she gave the Lady Raiders some hope. It was still going to be an uphill battle, obviously, and by that point the game was kind of away from them, but she gave them some hope down the stretch. And for that, I think you got to applaud her, especially against that stingy Auburn defense. It is so hard for a young player to be able to do something like that against an SEC caliber opponent. So good work by Carson Swaney on that front. And Elena Contreras was pretty solid off the bench last night. Now, she has started a few games this year, but ended up coming off the bench for this one. And she had 3 3-point shots along with 12 total points in 19 minutes. So she didn't play as much in this game, but the time that she did have, she made the most of it. And she put herself and the team in a better position as a result. And much like Swaney, she got going a little bit more towards the end of the game and provided some quality points for MTSU. So again, it was, I don't want to say that it was invalid or those points didn't matter as much down the stretch, because they do. They absolutely do. Even when you're losing a game, I'm sure Coach Insel will tell you this as well, you can learn a lot more about your team in those moments and what they're going to become. And like I mentioned earlier, when you look toward the end of the game, as rough as it was for MTSU early on, and it was rough in the second quarter, the best thing that happened is they didn't give up, and they found a way to draw the score ever closer. And I think you can tell a lot about a team by the way they respond to adversity, kind of like that. And for this Lady Raider squad, they showed a lot of character in their unwillingness to give in. When you get down to it, they outscored Auburn in the second half, and they really got into a rhythm offensively in the fourth quarter, at least to some degree. I think people are going to forget that towards the end of the game, MTSU outscored Auburn 9-0 in the final couple minutes, which may not seem like a lot, and yes, Auburn had brought in some of the bench pieces by then, but that's still showing some resiliency, and that's still showing that your players care, your players have fight, and they're trying to improve and get better and learn even from these difficult moments. And I think that, more than anything, may have been a pretty inspiring sign for Coach Insel. So, all things being equal, MTSU falls in this game, loses overall to Auburn. Well, you get what I'm trying to say, right? MTSU lost the game. But there is still some good things to take away. There are good things to look at for the Lady Raiders, and I wouldn't say that all is lost, especially not early on in the season and still with conference games to come. They have Wichita State coming up on Saturday. That game going to be in Kansas, by the way. And then after that, it's time to prepare for the conference games for MTSU. That means this upcoming game is going to be very interesting from the standpoint of MTSU is going to have to do a really good job of making the most of their opportunities with Wichita State, because after this game, they're not going to have any more chances to improve on their resume, to get better, and to get themselves better as a team before they have to play conference opponents. So MTSU is going to have to make the most of this opportunity. I think they can. I think they will. But it's very crucial for MTSU to get the job done as far as that goes. So I'm very curious to see how they respond against Wichita State. Should be a very fun game coming up on Saturday. And you can also catch that game right here on the Good Neighbor Network. That is WGNS. And I, later tonight, will be at the men's basketball game versus Kennesaw State. Full disclosure, This is a pre-recorded show, in case you couldn't already tell. I'm recording this a little bit before the show officially airs tonight, but you will catch this, hopefully you're catching this right now on YouTube and on WGNS. But men's basketball, I will be there. I'm the courtside reporter tonight for ESPN+. That's why I'm not doing the show live, but I've got it pre-recorded for you, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it so that you're well informed. Historically, this series has been all MTSU between these two teams. All-time, Blue Raiders are 8-0 overall, including going 7-0 at the Murphy Center against KSU. Last year, these two teams faced off in Kennesaw State's first year in Conference USA. MTSU won both games, but this Kennesaw State team has rebuilt and reloaded in a huge way. Simeon Cottle has had an unbelievable season so far this year. Preseason Conference USA Player of the Year already. Scores an average of 20 points per game, which is 36 in the country. That is no small thing. Twice last year, he set the KSU record for three-point shots with 8. He's already been having some great years this year, and he believes this Kennesaw State team is primed for a Conference USA championship run. But it's not just him, it's the entire team. You've got incredible players, not just Cottle, but you've also got, I'm trying to think of the name right now. I'll try to think of it later on. But as for the entire team, Kennesaw State, best rebounding team in America, 47.4 rebounds per game. They are also 6th in rebound margin right now at 12.6 overall. That kind of rebounding acumen could make all the difference in this game. If you go back to both games last season, the rebounding numbers were pretty even overall. So this was a pretty fairly even matchup when it came to both teams' ability to get rebounds both offensively and defensively. If you don't think that couldn't make a change in this game, then you're not seeing the same game that I am, because I think that could absolutely make a huge difference for Kennesaw State, and also their tempo. This is one of the fastest playing teams in college basketball. They're number 6 in the country right now in adjusted tempo, so they play really quick. MTSU is going to have to be ready for that. As for the Blue Raiders themselves, they've been sharing the wealth offensively as of late. 4 players averaging double-digit points right now. That's Kamari Lands, Javin Carter, Torrey Alston, and Sean Smith. And it's not only been the offense. Their three-point defense has been playing really good down the stretch. That's got to be a really inspiring sign for Nick McDevitt and the staff. Number 30 in the country. When it comes, very rarely have an empty possession, which is really critical when you're playing a high-scoring team like Kennesaw State is. And you also got a shout-out to Javin Carter. He's been turning on the Jets recently, folks. 3 straight 10-plus point game performances. Try saying that one 5 times fast. And he now leads the team with 12.6 points per game on average. Kamari Lands has been playing well. You still have Torrey Alston, Sean Smith, like I mentioned. The biggest question to me is whether MTSU can keep up with Kennesaw State's insane scoring stretches, and especially if they can limit their rebounding potential. If not, it could be a long night. But if they can, this is going to be a high-octane, high-impact, really fun game. Check that out right here on WGNS later tonight. Voice of the Blue Raiders, Chip Walters, will be on the call. Pre-game starts at 6 o'clock right after this show goes off the air, so make sure you tune in right here on the Good Neighbor Network. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk new hires on the MTSU football staff. There's a new offensive coordinator and offensive line coach in town. We'll talk all about it. And we'll also talk about the recent Heisman Trophy ceremony, what the results were, whether we agree with them, and what we think it could mean for the future. All that and more is coming up right after the break, so stay tuned right here on WGNS for more All Sports Talk.
You're listening to the flagship station for Blue Raiders sports.
Caught 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Middle Tennessee.
Play up, bench, Cole.
Middle Tennessee football, basketball, and baseball. Yeah, we got them.
You're listening to the flagship station for Blue Raider Athletics. I'm Chip Walters. Hear the games here on News Radio WGNS.
Middle Tennessee win.
Raiders win the championship.
Your source for the Big Blue and the Borough. News Radio WGNS.
This is Chip Walters, and I'm honored to be your 2024 MTAR Realtor of the Year. I'm with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates, and like many of you, I've seen the real estate market shift and change. People often ask, Chip, what's really going on? Well, that's a great question, and I believe in answering with solid, factual data. So let's cut through some of the noise. I invite you to reach out. Let's have a conversation about your real estate goals and the current market trends in your neighborhood. You can find all my contact information at choosechip.net.
Are you paying too much for home and auto insurance? Let the experienced professionals at My Team Insurance in Murfreesboro help. With decades of experience, their team provides superior customer service, low rates, and a clear understanding of your coverage needs. Whether it's home, auto, health, business, or life insurance, My Team Insurance makes protection simple and affordable. Visit myteaminsurance.com today. That's myteaminsurance.com. My Team Insurance, proud supporters of the Blue Raiders.
Clark's Auction Company will get you top dollar for your property.
Clark's has a team of experienced auctioneers and realtors who make selling your property simple. Whether you're selling your home, farm, or have an estate to settle, auctions are easy, fast, and profitable. You don't have to worry about the hassle of updates, repairs, or showings, and you'll receive multiple offers on auction day.
Clark's Auction Company will get you top dollar for your property.
Clark's Auction Company, committed to auction excellence.
Sold it to you, 27.5.
The Doug Young Educator of the Month, sponsored by City Tile and Floor Covering on Spring Street, is Amy Swikert, an early childhood education assistant at Holloway High School.
I always wanted to have a house full of children and was unable to have my own, so being in education allows me to share my love, guidance, and encouragement with the students every day.
Amy says the best part about her job is loving on the babies each day.
The opportunity to nurture and care for the babies each day, giving them love and attention while their moms focus on completing their education. Being able to support both the child and their moms in this way makes my role incredibly rewarding.
Amy Swikert, an early childhood education assistant at Holloway High School, is the Educator of the Month.
Inspiring even one family to believe in themselves would be the greatest accomplishment of all.
The Doug Young Educator of the Month, sponsored by City Tile and Floor Covering. Know an outstanding teacher? Nominate them at wgnsradio.com/educator.
Good afternoon. A little bit heavier than it was 15-20 minutes ago here on the South Loop, especially there at I-40 at Demumbria Broadway as that traffic cranks up right on schedule. 40 East over here at Donaldson Pike as that traffic pushes on out into Wilson County. It's moving right now on 65. It's just heavy at times northbound. 65 up through Madison trying to get past Rivergate Parkway. Hey, when you need dependable towing for that car or big truck, call STR Towing and Recovery. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
It's all sports talk from the Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9, 100.5, AM 1450, wgnsradio.com, and Big G TV.
And welcome back. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays here on All Sports Talk on this December 17th, 2025. Christmas is 8 days away. And, of course, myself and I'm sure all of you have been trying to get your holiday shopping in, trying to make those trips to the mall, to Best Buy, to Electronic Express, to Walmart, wherever you got to go. Some of you may have went to Opryland to go check out the lights. Hey, I know ICE is back in session right now over there in Nashville as well. I always liked going to ICE. My favorite ride for all the kids listening out there was the slide. When I was really young, you'd go down that big, massive ice slide. That was some of the most fun I had at that young of an age. So for everybody who hasn't been to ICE in Nashville, I would definitely recommend going because it's a lot of fun. But it's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about sports. That's what you came to listen to, right? So we're going to talk a little more sports here on All Sports Talk. Only seems right. We're going to move into talking about MTSU football's new hires, and this was just released yesterday. So this is not quite breaking news, but it's been within the last 24 hours or so. MTSU football with two new members of their staff. Anthony Scelfo is the new offensive coordinator for the Blue Raiders, and the new offensive line coach for MTSU is Mr. Christopher Brown, who is coming in and filling the role after Kendall Simmons vacated it. This courtesy of the Blue Raider Athletics website. Scelfo comes to Murfreesboro from southeastern Louisiana, while Brown joins Mason's staff following one season at Arkansas. Coach Mason said, "Anthony and Chris are outstanding additions to our staff, and we're thrilled to have them join our program. They each bring an established identity to our offense, strong recruiting backgrounds, and a clear understanding of what it takes to win at a high level. Most importantly, they are aligned with our vision for the future, and we're excited about the impact that they'll have on our players and our culture. That courtesy of MTSU football head coach Derek Mason. So Scelfo, for those who may be a little bit unaware about exactly who this guy is and what he's done in the past, he comes courtesy of southeastern Louisiana. That's where he was last coaching at earlier this season, as a matter of fact. He was with, I guess you can call him CLA. I don't know if that's the exact way you want to make it, but they're southeastern Louisiana. And for those who are big FCS football fans, you may recognize southeastern Louisiana because they actually made the first round of the FCS playoffs this past year, courtesy of the Southland Conference. Scelfo spent the last 2 years as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach under his father, Frank. He coached 3 all-Southland first-team selections in his time with CLA. He spent 5 seasons total coaching at Southeastern Louisiana. The last 2 were as the offensive coordinator. The 2025 campaign, the Lions were 9-4 overall, got that spot in the FCS playoffs, and that offense ranked 22nd nationally in red zone efficiency, 32nd in scoring, 38th in rushing, which are all towards the top of the FCS in total. And again, several players with all conference honors. And Scelfo, you'll see as soon as he came in and started to work with the Southeastern Louisiana offense, you can see an uptick in the production and the overall efficiency of this offense, I'll say. So he did a great job of getting the Lions into a position where they could contend for the playoffs, obviously coupled with a great Southeastern Louisiana defense as well. But he really helped to put it all together, I would say, and got to coach under his father, Frank, to boot. So it's a really cool situation for him there, and now he's bringing all of that to MTSU, and he certainly seems to have the acumen to do it, especially when you consider that this guy has already had success as far as getting teams to the postseason. But there are several questions that come with this, and these are not negative questions, but these are questions that you have to ask, and I'm sure that Coach Scelfo is considering in his own right. How do you adjust to a new environment? Because this is a big change. It's going to be a big change anytime you go from one job to another, but this is certainly a massive shift because whenever you're in a new environment, there are going to be new challenges, new responsibilities, things that you may not have had to do in the past that you have to do now. It's a whole new culture, and you have to deal with the new side effects of that, so to speak. And he's going, and this is not to diminish what Southeastern Louisiana is, what they are as a college, and what they accomplished at the FCS level this past year, but he's going from an FCS school to an FBS school. Those are 2 different styles. Those are 2 different levels of play. And with that, you're going to have stiffer competition, and most importantly, you're going to have different players to contend with, better defenses to scheme around. Those are just, new challenges that every single coach has to deal with, but Scelfo will certainly have to consider all of that during his time. So how do you handle the responsibilities of being an OC at an FBS level? Because it truly is. It's a different playground, and I think that a lot of coaches would tell you that. I'm sure Coach Mason, who's also spent time in the FCS in the past, if I'm not mistaken, would tell you the same thing, that, yeah, it's a lot different going from that kind of level to what we got here, because Conference USA, we've had teams move into the conference, and they may eventually have success, but you think about, like, Kennesaw State last year. They ended up going 2-10. Now, in year 2, they won the whole conference, but it took them a year to adjust. Sam Houston had the same thing happen to them. Their first year, they won, I think, 3 games total, or maybe 4 games. Year 2, they come back and they have a 10-win season. So sometimes it takes a while for even programs themselves to adjust to the FBS level. Some take to it like a fish in water. So it's not a universal thing, but it is going to be interesting to see how Scelfo deals with that. But when you look at what he's done, what he's accomplished in the past, and what his offenses have been able to do, I think there are a lot of reasons to be positive, especially when you consider how the offense performed late in the season. They got their act together. They started to figure things out a little bit. Roman Gagliano really started to catch fire late in the season. He is a very impressive young man, a very impressive dual threat quarterback. He can run, he can throw, he can get guys inspired to play, he can generate huge explosive plays. He's got a lot of great tools, and I think that any offensive coordinator would be excited to work with that sort of young quarterback who has the world of potential at his back. And I think that Scelfo, especially with what he's been able to do as a quarterbacks coach in the past, he's going to specialize in exactly that. I think his main goal, and I'm not trying to speak for him, but I think one of his main goals will be to bring out the full potential of Roman Gagliano in 2026. So I'm excited to see how he does that. Another important hire, like I mentioned, is that Coach Brown, coming in as the offensive line coach for MTSU. Brown was an offensive line assistant at Arkansas before. For those unfamiliar, Arkansas was third in the SEC in rushing yards this past year. He was also the offensive line coach before that at Alabama State and had 3 all-conference selections in his lone year. He was also a former standout player in his own right at Southern University, that is, in the FCS. Now, this is a very important hire that Coach Mason, I'm sure, really wants to get it down perfectly as well, because when it comes to this kind of hire, you've really got to make sure that your offensive line is set, is good, and can execute well. We've said it a lot. I think not only on this show, but it really across any major football program, any major football show, they'll tell you, the experts will tell you, that offensive lines are about the most important thing to get boiled down. If you don't get the offensive line right, then nothing else really works because your quarterback doesn't have time to throw, your running back has nowhere to run. And MTSU had some struggles offensively on the line this past year. They've got an opportunity to rectify that and get the running game going, which was an aspect of their game at times, but I'm sure they would want more consistency from it this season. Get maybe 100 yards in every single game, or at least close to it. You add that, you add a whole nother element of offense. And I would say that Coach Brown certainly has the potential to do that. And again, with his acumen, with his pedigree, a guy who's already been at Arkansas, has experience seeing what an SEC program's about, I think Christopher Brown has the potential to be a really big figure as far as MTSU goes in the coaching circles. So I'm really excited about that hire as well. And considering what he's already done, I think it could be a slam dunk possibly for MTSU. And like I said, they're going to need a solid offensive line to make the running game better and to put Gagliano in the best possible position to win. It's very important to get this hire right, and I think Coach Mason made a pretty solid hire in that respect. So best of luck to Coach Brown and Coach Scelfo. I think they're going to be really fun additions next year, and I'm telling you, man, 2026 for MTSU football is going to be a lot of fun, a lot of new pieces, a lot of new guys, but a lot of reason to be excited, a lot of reasons to be excited, plural. Got to make sure to specify that to watch the Blue Raiders next year. So I'm very excited to see how they do, and I think that MTSU football, now with all of this said, has the potential to go pretty far next year. So looking forward to seeing how all of that shakes out. That was not the only football news that came out from this past week. Diego Pavia and Fernando Mendoza finished top 2 in the Heisman Trophy voting. I didn't mean to put Fernando last there because he should be first, because he is first. Fernando Mendoza winning the Heisman Trophy for Indiana, and if I'm not mistaken, he's the first Hoosier to ever win that award. There are a lot of people who have a lot of takes about whether or not this was the right move. There have been stat comparisons. There have been people saying this about it, people saying that about it. Some have said that, maybe Mendoza isn't as flashy, I guess, as past quarterbacks. Maybe he's not as flashy of a pick. To me, I don't really think any of that matters because Fernando Mendoza, he helped Indiana to win and win big. And to me, winning is one of the most important things that you can have in the Heisman Trophy race. Now, a lot of people have made the case that when it comes to the Heisman Trophy, it should be more about the stats you put up or how you elevate the team around you. And some have said that, well, Indiana may have had a chance to win without Mendoza. But I just don't know if that's the case. I mean, you watch Indiana football, especially down the stretch. They needed Mendoza in several of those games. You think they're beating Penn State? You think they're beating Ohio State without Fernando Mendoza? I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that it's going to be at least tough sledding for Indiana. Mendoza definitely elevated the squad. And I'll say it like this. As many of you know, I'm a Miami fan. So I watched some of Fernando Mendoza at California because he played Miami last season. He had Cal up 34-14 at one point in this game. Now, Miami ended up coming back to win, but what I remember was, man, this guy looks really efficient passing the football. He looks really confident in the pocket. I wonder if he'll go to a bigger program down the line. Lo and behold, he transfers to Indiana, and all of a sudden, he's a Heisman Trophy winner. So that just goes to show what taking a shot at a different team can do for you, especially a program like Indiana. And that's not to diminish Indiana at all. What they've accomplished this year and what Coach Cignetti has done has been nothing short, of sensational. They've been incredible over these past couple years. And I think Fernando Mendoza bought into that and saw that, hey, this team they've got something special to him. And he was, I think, that missing ingredient that they needed to get themselves over the top and really contend for a national championship. I mean, think about it. Indiana is the number 1 overall seed, 13-0, and they're the Big Ten champions this year. Imagine telling somebody that 2 years ago after they went 3-9, that they'd be doing that in 2 years. Absolutely wild. Coach Cignetti and Fernando Mendoza, they deserve all the credit in the world. And I loved Mendoza's Heisman speech. It was, I think, one of the best that I've ever seen. He did a great job with it. Some folks think that this should have gone to Diego Pavia, and I think it comes down to your mentality as far as what you think on that. If you're more of a stats guy, then Pavia probably should have won the award. I think you could make the argument per se that Pavia may have elevated Vanderbilt more than Mendoza elevated Indiana. Both certainly elevated their teams. There's no disputing that. Some say that without, Pavia there, Vanderbilt would have gone like 7-5 or 6-6. Now that's a big assumption to make, but it is at least a case that could be made because certainly Pavia elevated the team and really got them, I guess, juiced up for the run that they ended up having on the year. But let's not act like Vanderbilt didn't have any talent at all because they had a lot of great talent on there. Cedric Alexander, Eli Stowers, that tremendous defense, a lot of super seniors on that team. They were a really talented squad that I think could have done some damage even if Pavia wasn't the quarterback, but with him there, he certainly put them over the top and helped them to be a playoff contender down the stretch and a 10-win team, which, again, who would have ever thought that about Vanderbilt going into 2025? So I think both guys had a case, but I'm not upset about Fernando Mendoza ultimately getting the award because, to me, he showed a lot of what you would want in a Heisman Trophy winner in his play. I think he'll represent the trophy well. We'll see how it goes for him in the playoff, but to me, he and Indiana have already had kind of a dream season. They've already proven a lot to me, and I'm sure to a lot of other people. Even if they get bounced in their first playoff matchup, I don't think that Indiana's got anything to be ashamed of. They've played their hearts out all season long, and they deserve all the opportunities they're going to get. And Fernando Mendoza, he is going to have a chance to prove himself against the best of the best in the playoff. They're going to be playing the winner of Alabama-Oklahoma, which we'll get more into after the break. But it's going to be very fun to watch Mendoza and Indiana. Congrats to Fernando on the Heisman Trophy. Speaking of college football, when we come back, we're going to talk college football playoff first-round matchups. I'll give my completely unbiased take on Miami, Texas A&M. We'll talk Alabama, Oklahoma, and can the G5 teams pull an upset against Oregon or Ole Miss? We'll talk about all of that and more after this quick timeout right here on WGNS, the Good Neighbor Network. Don't go anywhere, folks, right here on All Sports Talk.
Every team knows which play can be a winning move. I'm State Farm Agent Andy Womack, here to help life go right by combining your home and auto insurance. Call me today at 615-890-0850. It's a winning move that saves you time and money. Your ride, your stuff. You live with them together. I'm State Farm Agent Andy Womack. It's smart to protect them together, to help life go right. Give me a call at 615-890-0850 and let me help you save by combining your auto and renters.
Whether you need general vehicle upkeep and maintenance or a complete vehicle overhaul, Hall's Auto Care is here for you. We're locally owned and operated by Greg Hall and have been in business since 2014. You'll get excellent service and trustworthy advice with Hall's Auto Care. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. We're ready to help get you safely on the road. Hall's Auto Care, 907 Ridgely Road, just off Broad Street behind Chili's. Online at hallsautocare.net. Hall's Auto Care.
WGNS. This is Peter Demas, and here is this week's Demas's Emergency Responder of the Week.
Murfreesboro police officer and SRO Cole Glass was on a bike patrol when he noticed a child struggling with a broken bike chain. The boy, visibly frustrated, told Glass the chain came off. Without hesitation, Glass knelt and fixed it, and the moment became a small but powerful reminder of the heart behind the badge. Murfreesboro police officer Cole Glass's response exemplifies the kind of everyday heroism that often goes unnoticed. A willingness to pause, engage, and uplift a neighbor in need.
When you see a firefighter, police officer, paramedic, or telecommunicator going the extra mile, let WGNS know, and we at Demas's Restaurant will salute them as the Emergency Responder of the Week.
Next on All Sports Talk, it's the Blue Raider Insider Report with Chip Walters of Exit Realty, Bob Lamb & Associates.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and it is another basketball night at Murphy Center. The Blue Raider men set to open Conference USA play tonight with a bout against the Kennesaw State Owls. Tips off tonight at 6:30. We'll have the pregame show coming up in just a few minutes at 6 o'clock right here on the Blue Raider Network and WGNS. The Blue Raiders are undefeated all time against Kennesaw, winning all 8 matchups that have been played. At home, Middle is 7-0 against Kennesaw, winning both games as first-time conference opponents last year, but this is a really good Kennesaw State ball club. After opening league play on the road last year, the Blue Raiders begin conference play at home this year for the first time since the 23-24 season. Coach Nick McDevitt looks to win his second straight conference opener when Kennesaw comes to town tonight, and the Blue Raiders were voted to finish 4th in the preseason Conference USA poll after tying for 2nd a season ago. On the offensive end of the court, the Blue Raiders have consistently shared the wealth of scoring with 4 players averaging double-digit totals. And that again tonight at 6 o'clock on the air, 6:30 tip-off at Murphy Center. Women's basketball last night, the Blue Raiders were unable to overcome early offensive struggles in a 68-52 loss to Auburn. Middle now 4-7 on the year. Auburn is 9-3, and it was early turnovers that caused the Blue Raiders problems. After the game, Coach Rick Insell.
Guys, I've just got no answer the way we're starting. We look good in practice. We look good in our preparation. Our coaches are working hard. Our players go through our preparation. Then we go out there and start the game, and we forget what we're doing. I have no answer for that. The only thing I know to do is just keep working. Repetition may pay off if we just keep doing and working every day. You know, again, we're not shooting the ball well. We're 8 of 23. But you take all those last 4 or 5 or last 3 or 4 threes late, and you put them early, and we're still in the ball game. They outscored us 1 point the third quarter, and we outscored them 5 points the fourth quarter. So, but the first quarter 13-9, second quarter 22-6. We're not running our offense, and then when we got some people that act, you know, that in practice, they're great at running our offense. We get out in the game and we forget what we're doing. Well, when you got 1 or 2 people who don't know what's going on, it messes up everything else. Again, I thought we got great effort out of Macy Pfeiffer. I thought we got great effort out of Blair Bogus, again. But our point guard struggled. 2 good young ladies, but we struggled handling the ball. Unforced turnovers again. We had 25 turnovers. That's 27, 22, 25. That's not like our teams. And we can't win basketball games doing that. And it's unforced turnovers. The first turnover we had was an unforced turnover. The second turnover we had was an unforced turnover. The third turnover we had was an unforced turnover.
Turning to Blue Raider football, Middle Tennessee head coach Derek Mason announced the hiring of Anthony Selfo as offensive coordinator and Christopher Brown as the new offensive line coach. Selfo takes over for Bodie Reeder, while Brown fills the role vacated by Kendall Simmons. And in Blue Raider baseball, they've announced the 2026 Groundhog Day luncheon will be held, guess what? On Groundhog Day, Monday, February 2nd, 11:30 in the Student Union Ballroom. Make sure you put that on your calendar. That's it for today. We'll be on the air with Blue Raider basketball, top of the hour, here on WGNS.
It's All Sports Talk from the Good Neighbor Network, FM 1019, 100.5, AM 1450, wgnsradio.com, and Big G TV.
And welcome back here on the Good Neighbor Network. That is WGNS, and this is All Sports Talk, everybody's favorite sports talk show. Well, that may not be entirely true, but hopefully it's still on your playlist somewhere. Dylan Simmons with you here on this Wednesday night. Another beautiful Wednesday night here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It's going to be a busy Christmas season. you can already see some of the Christmas traffic starting to bubble up. If you go outside and go to the shops, people all throughout the week are going to these big box stores trying to get those last-minute Christmas items. And if you're doing that, get on it because, hey, Christmas is going to be here before you know it. It is 8 days away. 8 days away. So don't waste your time because Christmas is going to be coming up soon. And it's Christmas not just from the standpoint of the holiday itself, but it's also Christmas for college football fans because the college football playoff is here. To me, it's one of the best times in the sports calendar all season long, especially with this new expanded 12-team format. Some may not be as excited about the expanded aspect of it, but I think I'm personally a big fan of the 12-team playoff, and I'm especially a fan of it this year because, the Miami Hurricanes got in. So I'm excited to see how the playoff boils out this year. But we got 4 playoff first-round matchups. We'll go over each of them really quickly on our final segment of the show. Number 12, James Madison takes on number 5, Oregon in the nightcap on Saturday. That's going to be on TNT. JMU right now a 21-point dog to the 5th-seeded Ducks. I know a lot of people are a little bit unsure about the inclusion of the 2 G5 teams of James Madison and Tulane. I think this is the one where I'm less sure that an upset can be sprung. I look at James Madison, and they've had an incredible season. All credit to them, Coach Bob Chesney and that entire team. They've had a really solid year so far. 12-1 Sun Belt champions. Their only loss came against Louisville, who was a pretty solid team in the ACC, all things considered. So that's not a bad loss to have, but this is certainly a tough task. Not only are you having to play Oregon, not only are you having to play them in a playoff game, you have to go all the way across the country to do so, and it's in prime time. So there are a lot of things stacking up against James Madison here. Not just the fact that this is their first playoff game ever, and that may, generate some uncertainty in some respect, whereas Oregon, a lot of their players have been here before. They were in the playoff last year, didn't win a playoff game because they drew Ohio State. So this is going to be a tough game for James Madison. They're in a really disadvantageous spot. I think the only way that I can see an upset happening here is if James Madison is able to generate a lot of turnovers, especially early on. If they can give themselves a 14 to 21 point cushion in whatever fashion it might be, they may have a legitimate opportunity to at least keep it close with Oregon. That's not a guarantee. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I'm saying there's a very small path to make it happen because Oregon's going to have theirs. They're going to get opportunities against the James Madison defense, and they've got big physical players on both lines. They're going to make life really hard for the Dukes. So I foresee Oregon winning this one and winning this one fairly easily. Not to say I wouldn't be against an upset, but it's going to be a situation where a lot's going to have to go right for JMU to make this happen. But we'll see. Crazier things have happened. James Madison taking on Oregon in the nightcap on Saturday. Also on Saturday, 11th-seeded Tulane takes on 6th-seeded Ole Miss. If there's one thing I don't enjoy as much about the playoff this year, it's that we're getting a lot of potential rematches. We've already got 2 in the first round, and we may get another one in the second round because if Ole Miss wins this game, they'll be playing Georgia, and they've already played this season. So there's a chance that that could happen once more. So this game has already happened early on in the year. I think, don't quote me on this, I think it was back in September. Tulane lost by 35 points. That said, that was early in the season, and obviously Ole Miss still had Lane Kiffin. Pete Golding is now the head coach for the Ole Miss Rebels. So will that change the attitude of Ole Miss? Will that change their play style? Will it change how they look? We don't know all that yet because Ole Miss has not had a game without Lane Kiffin thus far as a program since he left. So this is going to be our first time looking at a Lane Kiffin-less, if that's a term you can use, Ole Miss Rebels team. Now, the most important thing, they've still got all the talent around them. They still have Trinidad Chambliss. They still have a solid running game. They still have a defense that can, bust it open with turnovers. They've got all of that. However, Tulane has gotten a lot better as this season has gone forward. Jake Retzlaff has come into his own. That offense has started to, catch some sparks down the stretch. Played really well against North Texas, both offensively and defensively. And if there's one thing we know about John Summerall, current head coach of both Tulane and Florida, it's that he's going to have his team ready to play in a big situation. They've played championship football before, and they've played well in playoff, quote-unquote, situations. I wonder if people have forgotten back to the 2022 Cotton Bowl when Tulane, as the American Conference champion, took on USC. You want to know what happened? Tulane won that game. So to say they can't beat a playoff caliber team, I think is disingenuous, or at least I think there's a possibility it could happen. I could see Tulane kind of flipping the script on this game. Now, I think a lot's going to need to go right for them, but I think it's a little bit more realistic than James Madison against Oregon. I think Tulane has some bigger bodies that can certainly challenge Ole Miss to some degree, and they do have an explosive offense that could catch Ole Miss off guard, and I'm curious to see if they can get that done. I think they're going to have to hang in there. They're just going to have to survive the early onslaught because Ole Miss is going to score and score fast early on. Very rarely do you see them not get their earliest points. So I think Tulane's going to have to survive that opening punch and then hope that they can stick with him, make it a game in the fourth quarter, and then who knows what can happen. But I think that could be a sleeper hit. We'll see. I am picking Ole Miss to win that game by about 3 touchdowns. But again, if there's going to be an upset in the G5, this is where it's going to happen. All right, Friday night. 9th-seeded Alabama takes on 8th-seeded Oklahoma, and Fowler and Herbstreit will be there. I was kind of selfishly hoping they'd be at Miami, Texas A&M, but they're going to be at the All-SEC game. This is kind of a head-scratcher matchup, not because I don't think both teams don't deserve to be in the playoff, but because I don't know what to expect. Oklahoma has been all defense, but offense hasn't been there as much as of late. Alabama's been struggling really on all ends. So I'm kind of unsure about what exactly we're going to see here. To me, this game being in Norman does make a huge impact because Oklahoma in Norman has been really good against Alabama, and historically they've been good against Alabama. Beat them last year by 3 touchdowns, beat them this year at Bryant-Denny Stadium thanks to 3 turnovers from Ty Simpson. Beat them on the road. So Alabama is certainly in a bad spot here. They've been banged up with injuries in this late part of the season. My question is, how healthy are they going to be for this matchup? If they've got some players back, they've got a chance. Oklahoma, how good is the offense going to be? Can John Mateer get his early season form back? Can he kind of stretch the Alabama defense to some degree? Because their pass defense has been solid this year, and Oklahoma has struggled to get anything going on that end. So This is a toss-up game. I have gone back and forth on who I think is going to win this matchup. I'm going to say for the sake of argument that I'm going to give this one to Alabama. I'm going to say Alabama wins this one. Close game, probably 6 points, Crimson Tide win. But I look for it to be a low-scoring kind of 17-13 matchup down there in Norman. Lastly, and I'll make this one quick because we're running out of time, but my Miami Hurricanes taking on the 7th-seeded Texas A&M Aggies. I've saved what I think is the best matchup for last. This is going to be a fun one. I just wish it was in prime time instead of being at noon Eastern time at College Station, Texas, but I think it's going to be a great game. Both teams have great lines, have physical players. They can get a lot of stuff done, both offensively and defensively. Carson Beck's been coming into his own as of late. Marcel Reed's been pretty good all season long. Actually, I'd say great all season long. Texas A&M has an incredible ground and pound running game. Miami's got a top 10 defense at stopping the run. This is going to be tight. I think all the way down to the wire. If I had to choose in this one, and leaving my bias completely out of it, I'm going to say for now that Texas A&M gets the victory here. Now, in my heart of hearts, I think Miami certainly has the ability and the potential to do it, and, my heart says they will. My brain says, go Texas A&M for now. But maybe I'm trying not to reverse jinx Miami. Who knows in that end. But I do think it'll be a good game. It's going to come down to the wire. I think of all the games that could be close, I think this one has the greatest opportunity to be close. That one will be on ESPN on Saturday at noon. Should be a great college football playoff first round. And that will do it for this week's edition of All Sports Talk. We will not be back next week because it's Christmas Eve, so you'll see me again in 2 weeks for a New Year's Eve edition of All Sports Talk. And tonight, right here on the Good Neighbor Network, following this show, Chip Walters has the call of Blue Raider men's basketball taking on Kennesaw State in a conference matchup in December. Until then, for all of you listening in, for my producer Jackson, I am Dylan Simmons saying so long and have an electric night. This has been All Sports Talk.
Jennings & Ayers Funeral Home has served Murfreesboro families with compassion and care since 1880. As a family-owned funeral home, we're committed to honoring every life with dignity through traditional services.
Subscribe to Big G TV, local content that matters to Rutherford County.